Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core Studio. Welcome to the show. So, oh goodness, Wizards, they really just can't help themselves. They're like, oh yeah, spoiler season's on January 17th. Okay, mark your calendars, make sure you're ready for that. Oh, but by the way, we also have a first look that we're going to do now. We're adding that to the calendar too. And then also in between that and now just miscellaneous spoilers just for no reason. And then leaks that we probably leaked ourselves. So yeah, we're back at it again. Yeah, again, I keep saying, oh yeah, make sure you're staying to the channel for the 17th because that's when spoilers come out. But now it's more like just kind of, yeah, be ready whenever, I guess, because Wizards, again, just can't help themselves. We've got yet another spoiler today. All that said, let's just jump into it. Kaito Dancing Shadow. That's right, Kaito is back and not completed, and I think actually I mean, after getting a lot wrong, and we'll talk about that here in a bit, I believe I predicted this one, since we already have, and close your ears really quick if you don't want a story spoiler, I can't talk this morning. I guess you're already getting one with this, but yeah, Jace and Vraska apparently have been completed, and that would be a blue and mono black planeswalker. So therefore, I predicted that the blue black planeswalker would not be, completed with Kaito. So regardless, here we are. Legendary planeswalker Kaito starts off at 3 starting loyalty, costing 2 blue black. Whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, you may return one of them to its owner's hand. If you do, you may activate loyalty abilities of Kaito twice this turn rather than once. So that's an interesting concept to start off with. Let's keep going though. +1, up to 1 target creature can attack or block until your next turn. 0, draw a card. -2, create a 2/2 colorless drone artifact creature token with Death Touch. And when this creature leaves the battlefield, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. So yeah, there's a good amount going on here, but basically Kaito helps you out even more so when you have creatures get through, because yeah, when you maybe say have a little evasive creature that gets through, you can activate Kaito twice, and that can be a lot of value. Again, that +1 can actually be a way to help you get a creature through. I mean, yeah, you can basically just say, okay, I'll +1 before combat. This person only has 1 creature. That creature can't block. Cool. I'll get through on them. And then after combat, you can still then, activate Kaito again, essentially. So you can say, okay, yeah, maybe I'll draw a card. Maybe I'll make that drone with Death Touch. That can probably get through on an opponent if they don't want to block. And also, when it dies, it's going to drain everyone, and, we gain life. That's great. Now, obviously, this Planeswalker, I think, is pretty specific kind of what kind of decks it wants to be. And it's just not a generically good Planeswalker. And it's one that actually doesn't, really have an ultimate. There isn't, like, some, massive ability that this has. It doesn't have a -7. It's a -2, which you can utilize right away if you need to. So, yeah, if you need to kind of, start your little army so you can start getting creatures through, that might be a way to do it. And, just obviously being able to provide a good amount of card draw throughout the game can be great. I mean, just keep in mind, with that 0, again, if you get even just 1 creature through on an opponent and you're willing to bounce them back to your hand, that's draw 2 essentially with this potentially, So you can do a lot with this. It can also be defensive too in a way. Again, if, say like an opponent has a massive creature you don't want to get hit with, you're like, that one can't attack or block until my next turn. So yeah. It's basically kind of shut down. So yeah, this Planeswalker has a good amount of potential. Again, I think it is for some pretty specific decks. We'll talk about those here in a bit. Now, obviously, you can just splash it into, a Super Friends deck if you really want to, and we'll talk about some options. But yeah, I think for the most part, this guy, this Planeswalker really wants to be in a deck that really can focus on getting creatures through, and we'll talk about some other benefits you can get, with the bouncing creatures too. But yeah, an interesting concept for a Planeswalker. We've started to see Wizards more and more lately be like, oh yeah, we'll find some ways to make it so that we can have, Planeswalkers activate multiple times. And this one, again, kind of has a requirement to get there, but it's one that you can definitely get in the right deck. So yeah, this can provide a good amount of value throughout the game. Now, when it comes to those kinds of decks and what they might want to focus on, kind of mentioned this here a little bit ago, but yeah, creatures that are evasive, especially low to the ground creatures that are evasive, because if you're going to be bouncing them back to your hand, yeah, only having to pay like, 1 mana to get back out so that next turn you can do it again can be great. And we'll talk about, obviously, that works with a certain kind of mechanic as well. We'll talk about some planeswalkers, or sorry, some creators that work with that mechanic too. Regardless, yeah, I mean, creatures like Tormented Soul, Siren Storm Tamer, and Wingcrafter are ones that obviously work very well with this kind of a planeswalker. Tormented Soul can't block, can't be blocked. It's just a 1/1 for 1. Yeah, I mean, it can't block. Too bad. Who cares? It can't be blocked, though. It's unblockable, so always going to be able to get through on an opponent. And again, so then we can just basically, utilize this as another source of, card draw if you want, or another source of, being able to make a creature not be able to attack or block because we can activate our commander multiple times. Or if we got, the loyalty ability, for it, if we got the amount of loyalty for it, we can, get more drones into play if we really need to. Siren Storm Tamer, 1/1 flyer, which can usually get through on at least one opponent. Pay blue, sacrifice a counter target spell ability, target a creature. So it's got some additional utility there. But yeah, a low to the ground creature that can, again, be evasive enough to get through on at least one opponent, usually. And in a somewhat similar way, we've got Wingcrafter, 1/1 with Soul Bond, as long as it's paired with another creature, both creatures have flying. So yeah, essentially, as long as you have another creature in play, this one can be a great one to get through on an opponent. And also, again, if we want to bounce it back to our hand and, make something else evasive next time, great, we can do that as well. So yeah, when it comes to that as well, the bouncing creatures back to your hand, instead of it being a downside, we can actually make it into an upside as well if we're using, well, specific types of creatures, creatures that have great ETBs, enter the battlefield triggers. So, I mean, just in these colors, Plaguecrafter is one that comes to mind. Enters the battlefield, each player sacrifices a creature planeswalker, each player who can't discards a card. So, a downside for everyone, most likely, mostly our opponents, because we're going to have ways to, take advantage of this if it's in our deck. And yeah, a way that we can repeatedly do it as long as we keep, not choosing to sacrifice Plaguecrafter. Age of Treachery, a very powerful ATB, enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. Yeah. That is a lot of, mana to actually, put into this every single time you're getting it out. But to be able to keep stealing your opponent's things, that can be very, very beneficial. Now, keep in mind, it does have to be one of the creatures to get through. But again, maybe if you've got, the Wingcrafter in play, which can help give it some evasion. Or again, you might be able to utilize, that +1 on your Planeswalker to be able to make, it essentially unblockable. If the opponent only has one block and you're like, that can't attack or block, okay, you can get your creatures through that. Or how about Gary, of course, Grey Merchant of Asphodel, enters the battlefield, drains your opponents for your devotion to black, you gain life for life lost this way. This can be a deadly one, a very deadly one to be able to get again and again and again. So yeah, again, you might be able to kind of play around with, ETBs, just some examples, with a Planeswalker such as this, depending on the situation. And yeah, I think the main focus of this kind of a Planeswalker is, yeah, I want to make sure I have evasive creatures that I can get through, but also, hey, if I can get some extra value for ETBs, that's great too. Some other kinds of synergies to consider, just ones that initially came to my mind that kind of work really well with this Planeswalker too. The first one that came to my mind is like a Teferi's Ageless Insight type effect. And Thought Reflection, I think, is another one essentially. But basically, pretty much the exact same thing. If you draw a card except the first one you draw on each of your draw steps, draw 2 cards instead. So yeah, Kaito's, 0 loyalty. Hey, draw a card, which again, you can activate twice if you get a creature through and bounce it back to your hand. So yeah, Kaito could draw you 2 cards in a turn, but with this in play, it could be up to 4, which is just absolutely incredible, just off of a, Planeswalker activation, essentially, or multiple activations, but you know what I mean. Dismiss in a Dream, another card to consider. Each creature your opponent controls an illusionist to other types than it has. When this creature becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it. Again, Kaito's +1, up to 1 target creature can't attack or block until your next turn. So, sure, I mean, it definitely can't attack or block because it's going to be sacrificed because we can just target it. And again, this is a great way to just keep, wiping out your opponent's creatures, basically up to 2 in a turn, right? As long as we can get one of our creatures through, we can take out opponent's creatures in absolutely no time. Annoying Procession, outside the colors, obviously, of Kaito, but if you have a deck that has Kaito in it with these colors, yeah, I mean, being able to double up on your token production can be huge. So, yeah, I mean, it could have some token synergies as well with that. And of course, there's other ones to mention, like, Doubling Season, etc., etc., etc. Yeah, basically, I just kind of, say Annoying Procession as all those, okay? Doubling effects for tokens obviously works well with a Planeswalker that can make tokens. Go figure. When it comes to Planeswalkers as well, of course, cards that work well with Planeswalkers, like a Karthalion, can obviously be considered. I mean, and obviously this would be, hey, if you're in a Planeswalker heavy deck, yeah, I mean, Karth's going to be great in there. You might want to consider, something like Kaito, depending. I mean, you probably have to have, some token synergies, some other kinds of synergy. You can't just have, all just Planeswalkers, because again, Kaito is kind of specific on what it wants to do. Regardless, when considering that, Karthalion says, when it enters the battlefield or dies, look at top 7 of your library. You can reveal a Planeswalker among them. put in your hand, rest of the bottom in a random order, you know, so some nice card advantage there. But most importantly, with something like Kaito, Planeswalker's loyalty ability to activate, cost initial +1 to activate. Now, that might seem like a bad thing, but it's actually a good thing. Essentially, your +1 becomes a +2, your 0 becomes a +1, and your -2 becomes a -1. So, yeah, making those, you know, drones essentially can be a lot easier, just a -1 instead of a -2. Drawing cards actually now gives you loyalty. Again, basically, instead of being a 0, it's a +1, which you can, again, if you get a creature through, activate twice in a turn. So, yeah, that can be a very, very impactful thing. And also, keep in mind, hey, if you want to try to get another Planeswalker off the top, and you can get card through in combat, yeah, bounce it back to your hand and, you know, recast to get that ETB again. So, yeah, definitely a consideration. And, yeah, of course, those Planeswalker synergies that work well that can, of course, help as well. And I probably should mention with Doubling Season as well. Of course, getting additional loyalty when your Planeswalkers come into play like Kaito can, of course, be very helpful too. Now, when it comes to commanders that might want to consider this card, yeah, we'll get to Planeswalkers here in a bit. But yeah, the first that came to my mind was Yuriko, the Tiger's Shadow. Commander Ninjutsu, so yeah, basically be able to kind of cheat your commander into play as long as a creature gets through. So yeah, Yuriko wants creatures to get through, of course. Whenever a ninja you control deals counter to a player, reveal the top card of your library and put that card in your hand. Each opponent loses life with that card's converted mana cost. So yeah, Ninjutsu, you know, a bunch of ninjas in your deck, most likely, ways to drain your opponents. And yeah, of course, being able to get your creatures through can be a great way to really make the most out of your, you know, new Planeswalker with Kaito. So yeah, definitely want to consider that. Another one, somewhat similarly, Satoru Umezawa. Each creature card in your hand has ninjutsu for 2 blue, black. So yeah, you can just ninjutsu out some massive things. So this kind of a deck, it definitely has, you know, two sides of it, essentially. You know, a lot of low to the ground evasive creatures, again, like those Tormented Souls, and then some massive creatures, maybe ones with some massive ETBs, again, like Agent of Treachery, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, you can take advantage, again, of both sides of that with this new Kaito. Moving on, John Arenicus, Shattered One. At the beginning of your end step, target opponent gains 2 up to 1 target creature you control, put 2 counters on it, and tap it. It's goaded for the rest of the game and gains. This creature can't be sacrificed. Whenever a creature you own but don't control attacks, you draw a card. So this can be a good, you know, again, this kind of deck is going to have a lot of low-to-the-ground evasive creatures as well, potentially. Ways to actually, you know, help them get through on your opponents. And, you know, just draw a lot of cards from that. You can draw even more cards with Kaito as well. And, of course, you can also kind of play some politics games as well. You know, giving a player a creature that's going to be go that has to swing at other players. And you can also make, you know, another creature, you know, that another opponent has that they might be willing to attack, you know, not be able to attack or block. So you can kind of help that creature that is goaded get through. So there's definitely some ways that you can play with that. And, of course, finally, yeah, I mean, a Planeswalker tribal deck, a Super Friends deck like Atraxa, could definitely consider it as well. Behavior end step proliferate, so yeah, get more counters on your, you know, Planeswalkers, essentially, more loyalty counters. So, yes, I mean, again, I personally think Kaito is a bit specific on what it wants to do. Sure, if you've got a lot of maybe token producing, you know, Planeswalkers, that might be a consideration. But yeah, I think kind of overall, more so the, you know, ninjutsu kind of strategies, the low to the ground evasive creature decks are going to be the ones that want to consider it more so than, you know, Super Friends decks. But you never know. There might be some Super Friends decks where this fits perfectly into. Now, before I kind of wrap things up really quick, I do want to talk about kind of what Planeswalkers have been completed. And again, like I, you know, mentioned earlier, if you don't really want to know which ones have been completed so far, which ones haven't, I kind of already mentioned it, but maybe you skip that part. You might want to end the episode now, but if you're okay with that and you want to hear my thoughts on what ones might be complete in the future, let's jump into it. So these were actually my initial guesses for the Planeswalkers that would be completed, and as you can see, well, I've been quite wrong on a lot of them. Kaito has not been completed, at least not yet, but yeah, Kaito is safe for now, so I missed that one. Nahiri, yeah, we don't know. No, actually, we don't know the other three, I guess. And then Jace, yeah, Jace, unfortunately, has been completed. I did predict that one, so yeah, I'm 1 for 5 out of these. But now, when we go to the ones that I thought would not be completed, yeah, okay, Koth is kind of cheating. Obviously, since Wizards showed that that it wasn't before this whole kind of thing was revealed, that there'd be 5 and 5. But yeah, I missed out on Nissa and Vraska. So we shall see kind of who in the future is going to be completed, how wrong or right I am. At this point, I've been pretty wrong because, yeah, I've already missed, you know, one on, or, you know, one in the completeds, you know, two in the uncompleted. So, yeah, I've been wrong. But yeah, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are. Who do you think is going to be completed? So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see in the future. At least Kaito is safe for now. Yeah, final thoughts on Kaito. I do think Kaito's a very interesting, you know, new planeswalker. Again, I think I like the kind of interesting take on ways to activate, you know, additional loyalty abilities. It's just not just, you know, hey, just do it, whatever. It's like, no, you need to meet this requirement first to be able to do it. So yeah, I like that. I think I like that a lot. I do think this is a pretty specific planeswalker. Again, one that isn't just, yeah, slam it in any deck. This is more so like, yeah, you need to make sure you have, again, those low to the ground evasive creatures, ones that can synergize with it, potentially some ETBs, etc., etc., etc. So yeah, definitely an interesting concept. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on it. And of course, as always, well, stay tuned to this channel for even more exciting spoilers coming out, because we don't know when spoilers are coming out these days again. January 17th is the official spoiler season, but who knows? We might get one today, tomorrow, whatever. Wizards just like willy-nilly like throwing them out. Yeah, here's a spoiler for you, spoiler for you, spoiler for you. But yeah, of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.